What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Good to see everybody. 2 days in a row. Happy to report. Finally able to get my act together a little bit here in the afternoons. Get these projections up a little bit earlier. They were up fairly early this afternoon. And I was waiting on some news. We had some changes come down. A couple of big pieces of news already out for the day, which is great. So we had some updating to do. Had to wait on sims. Got the FanDuel sims. You'll notice they're not populated yet. I've got a sim running right now. The first one didn't actually end up kicking out to the report, so I'm just waiting on this one to finish up and hoping that it does. Otherwise, I'll just shoot a quick note over to Blaine and let him know that something's hung up on the back end, and we'll get it afterward. And then this will just become a DraftKings leaning show. Let's see. It's spinning out. Let me just tell him. Hang out one sec. Let me send a quick... Looks like the never mind. We just got it. FanDuel report just popped up. And I'm telling them. Now I'm just telling them everything's fine because their product works really well. All right. Let me put this into our results here and we'll have a full thing to talk about. How's your days going out there, gang? So Cujo is in the door. Hopefully some other folks show up early enough today that hopefully we're a little bit separated time-wise. Not sure when everybody else in the industry is going, but I would imagine it's a little later for a 7:30 slate. Let me grab the FanDuel ownership this ran against. Anybody do anything noteworthy on that disgusting Monday Night Football slate last night? That was hopefully the worst Monday Night Football game we'll get. Hopefully it's the worst primetime game we'll get all year. Hopefully it's the worst game we'll get all season long. What a piece of garbage that was. Ugh. Ugly. Handful of people here hanging out, watching me and sitting here in silence, mouth agape, waiting for some results to pop up. Sorry for that. We got everything populated now. Rabbit holes here. Good to see you too, bud. Cujo. Good to see everybody. I got a little new icon on there. I think that might mean you guys are watching on your phones. I'm not sure, but they gave me a new option when I set up the show. I can do it like this way or this way now. And I chose both. So I think you can see it vertical or horizontal, however you're into watching these things now. Somebody let me know. Should be able to anyway. Apparently that's a new thing. Anyway, let's dig into this show. We've got an interesting wrinkle up at the very top of the board there with Mr. Andre Drummond popping to massive ownership on both sides. I've got him at 28 minutes, which is arguably a minute, 2 minutes aggressive on Drummond. But the last two times Embiid was out, Drummond played 28 plus, including 35 the last game. So I'm willing to give it to him. And we know for sure that Andre Drummond is a tremendous or capable of being a tremendous per minute guy. So I absolutely love that spot. And who from Boston's really going to shut him down? Stop him from grabbing all the rebounds he wants. So I kind of like that we're getting him pretty aggressively ahead of at least where the field is in the ownership that we're using here. Seemed a little light to me, but we're still coming up, 50%. Even if they're short by 10 points, we're still going to be nicely ahead of the field there at that number. So I really like that. Aaron Jones says, not letting the screen rotate for horizontal view. Could it be a me thing? I've got it set. Again, I've got it set to both. I'm actually looking at just the horizontal on my screen here. Do you have screen lock on? Same for rabbit hole. So you can only see it vertically up and down like this. Is that different from how it normally is? Did it used to rotate horizontal and now it doesn't? Because that would be a stupid feature if it broke it. Interesting. me see. Correct. And we could zoom. Huh. I wonder why it would not do that when I gave it that option. All right. Let's see here. Microphone. Well, that's annoying, huh? Why would it do that? Layouts you'd like to use. Video, camera, general. That's what I get for testing these things on like a live show. It doesn't look like I can change that from in here now. Absolute Power says his video rotates on his phone. What's up, Doug? Good to see you, buddy. Keep kicking that back and forth. Is it going to screw you guys up completely from being able to watch today if I can't fix that right now for the guys who aren't able to rotate it? I'll just not do that option tomorrow if you'll forgive me. It doesn't seem like that's something I can fix in here. I would have to like back out of the whole deal. Oh, unless nope. Not the, oh wait. No. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's something I can fix. Yeah, I think I would have to restart. So apologies, gang. Maybe it's just a listen kind of a day. Don't get to zoom quite as much as you might want to. But as I was saying, tremendous spot up at the top of the board there with Andre Drummond. Some differentiated plays right at the top from site to site. Same slate across sites. Oh, power. That's original power. He's just absolute power now. He got a promotion, I guess. Good to see you, buddy. I should have probably put that together. So let's dig into, I'll talk through some of the game environments quick. We're not waiting on all that much news. We got Al Horford, we got Embiid, a couple other pieces. 5 games on both sites. Opening up with the Grizz in New York to play the Knicks. Knicks favored by 9.5 at home, 230.5 point total there. Not a bad game, but not like both teams play at a good pace. But it's not one where like one is uniquely being pushed in a direction where they're not normally going to be. So we're getting a lot of it are who they are kind of spots out of that one, but very playable. Toronto at Brooklyn. Toronto favored by 10.5 on the road, 233 point total. Any piece from the top end of Toronto's rotation is always at worst usable. Whether or not they come up, we'll see in the Sims. I haven't really gone through with a fine-tooth comb, just getting him out a few minutes ago. Golden State at OKC, as mentioned, no Al Horford. That came down from Golden State. They're on a back-to-back, the front end of a back-to-back. So Horford will play tomorrow. 227.5 point total is our slate low point. We've obviously got some star power in that game, some go-to guys. We'll see if Golden State rules anybody else out. A little surprise like Steph, Jimmy, somebody like that sitting would obviously shake things up quite a bit. But right now, a lot of guys just kind of looking like who they are out of that one as well. Boston and Philly, as mentioned, Philly was already providing some pieces, and then Embiid decided he's not going to play. So we're just getting a lot of Philly now. And then some of the Boston side should be coming up here. And then we round things out with Indy at Utah. 3-point game there favoring the Pacers on the road. 233 point total in that one. Should be a little bit of action in that one, though. Both those teams can get up and down the floor a little bit. And then the ins and the outs. So Al Horford's out. Kevin Love is out. Taylor Hendricks is out. Joel Embiid is out. Sam Hauser's available. Jeremiah Robinson Earl signed a new 10-day with the Pacers, so he'll be available for 8, 10, 12 minutes. Sammy Hauser is probable. Sammy Hauser, we got the news, is available. Jared McCain also available. We had that one to begin the day. Questionables, Mitch Robinson, Sandro Mamushvili, Mamu. We got Al Horford. TJ McConnell, questionable to make his season debut, and Talon Peter is questionable. And then outs, Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr., Javon Small, Oshae Agbaji, Haywood Highsmith, Daron Sharp, Nolan Traore is in the G League, but the Nets called up some of those other guys. Jason Tatum's just going to be gone for the foreseeable future. Dominic Barlow, Johnny Broom, Paul George, Lou Dort, Thomas Serber, Nikola Topic, Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams with no Y, Kenrich Williams, Johnny Furphy, Tyrese Halliburton, Quentin Jackson, Cam Jones, Benedict Mathurin, and Obi Toppin. A lot of the Pacers still continue to be out, but they do have some pieces back, and again, potentially TJ McConnell coming back. Sounds like it works for Cujo on the phone flip. So some people working, some people not. I'm starting to suspect that maybe that's like an Apple versus Android kind of a thing. Not sure who's using what, but maybe it's something with that. I don't know. Figures. People versus technology. So a lot of different site to site. Let's start out. Let's go in reverse this time. Since it's a short slate and we have fewer centers to talk about, and we have one guy just kind of dominating up at the top of the center board, and Andre Drummond. Let's start here. 66% going in Drummond's direction on FanDuel. He's got a 7 value score over there. Again, we're typically looking for 5.82 on the DraftKings slate. He is a better producer on FanDuel scoring than he is on DraftKings by a little bit, just because of how the points count. But he's a monster on both these slates. He's 45 on FanDuel. He's 53 on DraftKings. Again, maybe you could argue to take 2 minutes away from him, give him 26 as a more reasonable projection. That would bring him down slightly, and you would still get him almost exactly the same distribution as this. He would still look like a dominant play up at the top, because honestly, it's a pretty short center slate. Like, look at this list of names. If I just told you blanket statement, Andre Drummond for 28 minutes tonight, or Kyle Filipowski, Nick Claxton, Nurk, Aldama, Hartenstein, Ketta, Mamu, Mitch in not enough minutes to matter, Isaiah Jackson, Jakob Poeltl in not enough minutes to matter, it's not a good center night. So the idea that we got Drummond kind of parachuted into this slate kind of helps. Embiid was essentially the same thing, but at a much, much higher price. Like 26 minutes of Embiid would probably rocket past this score, but at a higher price, so it was less valuable. So this is an interesting wrinkle from where the day began. Kyle Filipowski, minorly usable on the FanDuel slate at 4,600 power forward and center, coming up quite a bit more power forward center for 4,000 on DraftKings. He is a relevant piece of the DraftKings slate, 5.65 value score for the 4,000 over there. It's a 24-minute projection. Nothing special, nothing overly differentiated. He's a 0.89 per minute guy for the season. He was a 1.04 last year. I want to get into... I don't know why my computer is whirring like crazy. I don't know if you guys can hear that. So in a game that is roughly neutral pace for them, but they're getting a couple points beyond their average scoring so far this year, I've got him at 0.94, essentially splitting the difference between last year's production and this year's production for this one. You could argue him a point or two in either direction. It's the nature of the beast, but at that price, he is looking like a good piece, and you're probably picking up mostly in the forward spots, just right alongside Andre Drummond as two solid building blocks to get to more high-priced, interesting things. Nicky Claxton, 8% below the field on the FanDuel slate, gently below the field. Field's probably 12, 15% over there. I have no issues with it. 5.46 value score. He's just getting boxed out of most of those shares by Andre Drummond. These are coming up in the shares where Drummond is not. You're getting a little bit of Santi in that role. And then the guy that is falling into that role that I'm probably most interested in would be Hartenstein. 30 minutes of Isaiah Hartenstein. He's just a good per minute guy, good player. Doesn't really, it fills categories, so doesn't need to do any one thing to get his numbers. So I really like Hartenstein from there at 7%, but we're getting more of Santi probably going into the forward spot. On the DraftKings side, we got those guys straight down the line, 18% for each of Claxton, Nurk, and Santi Aldama, and then 14% and level with the field on Hartenstein. Not a one of those positions is wrong. You can take any one of those guys since they're fairly similarly priced. That ranges from 56 at the low end on Santi up to 69 at the high end on Hartenstein. And you can move those shares around basically any way that you want. Those guys are all productive 1+ per minute guys. They're all very fairly priced for who they are. They have commonality of position. They're all falling in basically the same range of value. Technically that we got Nick Claxton the most and level with the field because the 5.17 value is a little bit differentiated from the others. But that doesn't really speak to the ceiling score abilities. between those four guys, I would say it's either Nurk or Hartenstein for the true best ceiling in the bunch. But that is a good collection of guys to just kind of rotate around into a forward spot, into a util spot, just right alongside those two. Just building a foundation with some of these bigs. There's Keta, mix and matchy. One share below the field on, or a couple shares below the field on FanDuel. Not really overly interesting. He's played at 1.09 per minute this season, while playing about 26 a night. I've got him at 25. You can throw him another minute. He still wouldn't be all that interesting just with the way that he's hitting these other players on this slate. 3% of them on the DraftKings slate at 4,000. Again, not really, 8%. Harder undercut to the field at 4,800. I was looking a line down at Mamu. Where's his field ownership at on DK? Monty says, I've tried 2 browsers on laptop and same thing as my Android. You can only see it vertically like this on a laptop screen? Is that how it looks on like actual YouTube right now? No, I got to see this. Oh, weird. There's 2 streams. I'm seeing when I just went into my channel, it's got literally 2 different streams to click on. There's one that I assume is horizontal, and then there's one with a little phone icon that I assume is vertical. That's really dumb. And I can see there's 2 people watching on the horizontal one, and there's 10 people watching on the vertical one. So there's 2 streams out there, is what the difference is. That's really stupid. I will not click that option again tomorrow. If you back out and look for a different version of the exact same thing, go to my channel. There should be 2 listed there. Click the other one. That's dumb. Dumb. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you click on these new features that you think are going to help people, and look what happens. So dumb. There we go. Aaron Jones, that's it. Yep. That cost us viewer. We had people coming in and out and in and out, I'm glad we got it figured out at least. There will only be one unified stream tomorrow. That's so stupid. I wonder, can I kill that other one? Nah, doesn't look like. Well, at least we're figured out. Let's keep on going. All right, I was looking at Keta. I want to see what his actual ownership there is. Let me just look at it here. Oh, wow. He's all the way up top of the board. He's their 3rd highest owned player on DraftKings. Interesting. We had a lot less Keta than they did. I wonder if they have him dramatically offset by projection. What a big number. Again, he's an all right per minute guy. I don't mind getting a little bit more of him, but that seems like a lot. Yeah, I think they skewed him up when Embiid came off the board on the other side. I could definitely owe him a point from where I've got him. Put him up above a point per minute. I had him slightly below for today. I still don't love it, though. 0.90 last year, 1.04 this year. So I was kind of splitting the difference. And if you want to say, all right, no Embiid gives him a little bit better of an edge, I'm willing to give him that point and that puts him at like 102, a little bit closer to this year's mark. I still don't think that makes up the difference between that 8% that we got in the sim and then, the high 20s number that they had. Just a straight up point would be right there, 529 value score. So maybe he ends up here, more like 20-ish%, 18, 20, but probably not as high. I think it would still be an undercut. It would just be maybe a matter of him joining this group and taking a little bit of ownership from each of these guys and piling it into him. I think that would probably be how that would come out. I guess I'll give it to him. We'll still be lighter. The reason we would come up a little bit lighter too is that the ownership that ran against is going to have him projected out another 2-3 points beyond even that, which I don't think is justifiable. And yeah, I mean, he's going to be going up against Andre Drummond on the other side now, so it's not like the rebounds are going to be falling into his lap. I'm willing to give him the 1 and call it 15% max and stay below the field on that one, I think. It's coming up a lot. That is a decent price, and the per minute number is okay. But it's not like even with the additional point, he wasn't really crashing through the top of our 5.5 value threshold. Isaiah Jackson, a few shares over here, 5.7, 2 value is a good value score, but it's not as good as 7. It's not as good as some, well, it is better than these ones. But he's not getting into too many shares. Probably just the nature of the beast. We didn't need to save that much in the lineups that save money at center. It still went with the higher raw projection and the higher price because it could, I would say, is what explains the difference between why we would get the lower value mark per dollar guys a little bit more, even though it's still below the field. I think that would be what makes up the difference. Just money to spend, went value at a different position in those builds. Jock Landale, onesie, twosie shares. Same thing on the other side. Handful of shares of Sandro, of Mitch. I think it's still safe to leave Mitch mostly on the table. Excellent per minute numbers from his rebounding, from his stocks. A little bit more productive per minute on FanDuel than on DraftKings. But the minutes just really aren't there right now. He's played 16 and change a night so far. It's just not enough. So even at a cheap price, if we can crest him above like 20 minutes at these prices, we might catch him on a good value night coming up. But I don't think this is going to be it. Pirtle, we didn't get it all on either site. We got a share of Jalen with a Y on the FanDuel slate, not on the DraftKings slate. And that's it. That's all the centers that came up. So right now, looking strongly like Andre Drummond day. And again, I mean, last 5 for Philly. $35 minutes last time Embiid was out. 28 minutes of time before that. 16 with Embiid. Right? 23 in this one, going back. I feel at least okay with that 28. My first instinct, the first thing I plugged in was 26. And then I looked and I debated back and forth. And again, if you want to take it away from him, take 2 points off him, rock and roll, you'll still get him almost as much. Forwards. That's a really good pairing for that. Russell Crowe and Henry Cavill for the new Highlander movie. I like that a lot. That's a good pairing. Crowe can pull off the Connery role very nicely, and Henry Cavill's just perfect in fantasy and superhero genre stuff. Excellent as The Witcher, and he actually is like really into those roles, so he'll get into that. Oh, sweet. Everybody was able to give a thumbs up on both videos. Well, that's helpful. Feed that algo. Appreciate you guys. So Kyle Filipowski, a little bit differentiated across sites at the power forward center position. We got him 4% on FanDuel. We got him 48% of the time on DraftKings. Just a cheap spot filler. We talked about him a little bit. Trendon Watford coming up in the second spot, power forward only. Got a lot of him on DraftKings. And again, another guy differentiated across sites. Still a decent value score, though, on FanDuel, 5.20. Nothing to sneeze at there. We just have some better options. Cedric Coward is forward eligible. This is cutting by all the forwards, though, actually, so that's not a competitive back and forth. We're cut by DraftKings forwards, so it's a little bit different. So Coward's shooting guard, small forward, so don't count him. I'm just looking for who is boxing out those power forward shares. 42% on MPJ kind of makes sense. I don't love that, but it kind of makes sense. 8% there. There's another 24 on Santi Aldama. There we go. Pascal Siakam at 57%. 9,500, 57% above the field, gently so, but above the field. That's where a lot of them went. Watford in 25 minutes and 4,800 on FanDuel. That price totally works. Again, 5.20. There's no reason to not put them in lineups. It's just the nature of how the sims are coming together and which lineups are succeeding the most are not the ones that tend to include him. 7% below the field on DraftKings, different story. 5.30 value score for that 4,800 at power forward on that site. Works really, really well. Above the field, 34%, roughly 35. It's a gentle uptick from the field. You don't have to absolutely smash that button, but that is a very playable piece. Fanatics just finding out. Yeah, Fanatic, they gave me an option to if I wanted to stream it in both vertical and horizontal, and what it did from that was it created two different streams. So if you just back out, look for the other stream that's on my channel, that'll be your horizontal view, and this will never happen again. But yeah, don't know why it would not inform you that that's how it's going to do it, but it didn't, or I missed it. Probably more likely I missed it. MPJ, 42% FanDuel at 5.11 value. There's enough there. He's 7,300. That is just a good mid-range option. 115 per minute on FanDuel, up from 0.95 last year on a little bit more usage. Half a point of usage uptick. 7,400 at small forward only on the DraftKings slate. We actually got him a little lighter than the field. He's 30% in our top 150. It's a little undercut to the field. I think the field was like 40. If you wanted to push up to the field on that one, I do think that's a good enough option. There's just nobody else there. Like, who's going to do anything on that team to stop him from, taking whatever shots he wants, doing whatever he wants out there. So I think you can take more MPJ on DraftKings if you want it. I'm content at 30% and let the field have that. And then we can pick off our edge on some of these other guys. But I think you can take a little bit more of MPJ. FanDuel, perfectly happy with 42. I wouldn't really want any more than that. And honestly, at that number, if I could finagle like an undercut at 35 or so, I might actually try and take a shot at that. And that one does have a shared positional ability with Cedric Coward here. Again, not the greatest game environment, especially on the Memphis side of that one. Both those teams are running. The Knicks are playing a completely different type of offense this year. But it benefits the Knicks a little bit more than it does the Memphis side. But I just don't think other sites are necessarily counting, or some are, some aren't, are counting on Cedric Coward the way that he's been producing so far. 1.09 per minute so far this year. 1.11 on DraftKings. He's only 58 on DK. He's playing like 29 a night. That is a good option. It's a good option from the mid-range, and it's one that could spike a little bit of upside. Could definitely fall flat. First game in MSG, et cetera, but there is plenty of upside there from that price. We got him 30% above the field on FanDuel, 27% level-ish with the field, a little bit above the field, but closer to level. Wouldn't mind having that 30% on DK too. Take a few additional shares, especially if you're backing out of some MPJ shares, some Filipowski shares at universal forward. I just like the nature of that Coward play. He's succeeded with it a few times, and he seems like he's still under the radar for people. Scotty Barnes, just looking like Scotty Barnes out there, 35% below the field on FanDuel, 24% below the field on DraftKings. Perfectly fine. If you have a few additional shares of Scotty, no issues. If you have a few fewer shares of Scotty, also no issues. That's just kind of how it works up the top of that Toronto rotation. Him, Ingram, Quickly, and RJ. Any one of those guys, fine. Two of those guys is all right. I wouldn't want to go to 3 on a normal night. If one's missing, then maybe you're getting to 3. I'm sure Ingram's around here somewhere. Yeah, there he is. Line 27. Right, so Ingram right here, 14% level with the field for 7,600, 27% level with the field on the FanDuel slate. 72, 76 versus a little bit more money for Scotty. No issues with either one, just a little bit more raw scoring potential out of Scotty. Usage kicks around even when they're all out there. So a little back and forth on those guys. A couple of nicks in between here with Cat, with OG popping up. Prior to that, though, we can't skip down that far because we do have Josh Minott to talk about in the middle there. He came up a little bit on DK at 4,400. 47 on FanDuel, a lot less relevant. Level with the field, 8%, just, here and there kind of shares. That is an okay value score, though. 5.10. He's put up 1.03 per minute so far this season on, moderate, just slightly below league average type usage. That's up from the 0.99 in limited usage they had last year. 4,400 power forward only. We're getting him at a 5.22 value on DraftKings. That's pushing him above the field. 23% and above the field in our top 150. Decent little play. There's just enough there, playing at about a point per minute. Got him in at 23 minutes, but we could see a little bit more than that, depending on how that game goes. Larry Markkinen a little bit under the field on both sites, and this is a little bit of a stretch of guys where we're ducking under the field. Markkinen, Aldama, Jaylen Brown, Cat, OG, all those guys coming up between 15 and 19% on DraftKings, between 12 and 25% on FanDuel, but everyone below the field. Santi is the only guy in that group that's really differentiated by price. He and OG are somewhat close, and then everybody else is in like that upper mid-range. Like Jaylen and Cat back and forth, 85, 9,000 on DraftKings, 87, 85 on the FanDuel slate. You can see a lot of back and forth, kind of like that group among the centers, where you can just juggle a little bit if you see the field moving in one direction in your favorite ownership projections. Then you can pivot to more shares of the other guy at the expense of the one who's going up. You can follow the field up the ladder. You can take them how the sim spits them out just like this and be below the field on all of them and just take a larger position on some of those big pieces up at the top. But there's a lot of back and forth on this board between same type players like this. And they're all coming up without really any big indicator. The range on value from those guys, there is almost no difference there. 478 is the low, 494 is the high. On FanDuel, we do have a very, very large chunk of Pascal Siakam coming up. 9,500 over there. He's got power forward and center eligibility. On DraftKings, he's just a power forward at 9,800. 4.82 value. Didn't really get him that much. 14% and an undercut to the field. Undercut similar to the guys immediately above him that we were just talking about. The FanDuel value, 494. We're looking for 5 over there. I think that's kind of the reverse of what I was saying before, where just money to spend. So it was able to get him into those lineups despite not necessarily creating like the ideal value. It's just taken the raw projection because it can. That's a good situation to be in when you can just go to guys like that, even though it's imbalanced by point per dollar a little bit, and just take the raw scoring from a star like that. And it's a dynamite spot going up against Utah, one of the best spots for DFS point creation in the league. Siakam's playing at 1.26 so far this year, 1.29 on DraftKings, having to do a little bit more. So I like that spot a lot. Happy to have a little bit more than the field on Siakam on the FanDuel slate. Got him at 35 minutes, right on the nose of what he's been playing. Couple minutes more some nights, couple minutes fewer than others, but he's averaging 35-4. So right around who he is, and he's looking spectacular here. Ingram just right in the middle of the board on both sites, 27 on FanDuel, 14 on DraftKings, level with the field on both. But again, you can get a few additional shares of Ingram, could probably just kind of directly at the expense of Scotty. I think you could swap those guys just back and forth, same thing with like RJ and Quickly. Kelly Oubre, now that we have no Embiid, is kind of back on the board. He didn't really spike anything, 16%, 10%, but he was mostly irrelevant with Embiid in. But now that there's no Embiid, he's at least going to get a little bit of usage back here. The minutes were there, obviously, but we take a lot of usage away. So now it's just a is who he is, Kelly Oubre kind of a day. If you typically get to him, you'll probably expect to see him. But at these prices, you don't need him. He's only okay at best. You can see that in the value numbers. And 10% share, 16% share, not a ton. Naismith in that great game environment against Utah, we got him 16% level with the field at a pretty solid 5.18 value score on FanDuel. The 5,700 at both forward spots works pretty well over there. DraftKings at 63, not so much. He's a 0.84 DraftKings player. He's a 0.80 FanDuel player, but just coming up a little bit stronger value based on that price. Sorry, Williams, mix and match at best on any given slate. 0.82 this year, 0.85 last year, 0.83 over on DraftKings. We got him 10% of the time for the 41. As an alternate, it's like, every 5 builds, if you want to go from Filipowski play to a Zaire Williams play, sure. Just rotate through. 5 was obviously a made-up number, but every handful, he's a rotational value piece. He's not a critical value piece. I wrestled with this one for a large portion of my afternoon. Chet Holmgren. I think I've got him around where he should be. 1.18 per minute, 1.23 per minute on DraftKings. Or 118 this year, 123 last year. 117, 126 on FanDuel. Got him at 31 minutes, right around what he's averaged for the season. I think this is a good spot for him. 5.0 on the nose value on the FanDuel slate. Lighter than that for the 77 on the DraftKings board. We only got him 8% of the time, 10% of the time, level with the field on both. And what I was wrestling with was like, do I want to try and push Chet a little bit for an edge on the field when the field's not getting there? And I think that would be where it is. It's become just basically a decision for you to make. If you're using the projections, you're going to get them to come up about like this. And there is probably a little edge there. If the field's not going to take him, that's one guy that could go out there and do some damage to the slate that they're not going to have. There are a few other spots where we're over the field on big players as well. But that's one where we're not really coming up over the field. That could be one where we wish at the end of the night we had. So just be wary of that. I couldn't justify getting him any further up the board as far as the projection goes. I think he is a little further north in some places, and I'm not sure I can really justify it. But he's obviously a rock solid option as far as just his per minute numbers, the opportunity out there. Could easily crest that 31-minute mark as well, which would push him up for value. McConnell's questionable coming in. Swoosh. But yeah, if he's out there, that's, I would figure first game back, 16, 18. I think I've got him at, I gave him 15 in the end. I forget what I gave him in the end, but it's somewhere in that territory. I don't think you're going to see the TJ McConnell like 28, 30-minute game. You could, and that would obviously screw everything up. But just, a very, very good per minute guy to be aware of that's just kind of landing in the slate. But I don't think we see all that much of him. Just kind of, hunch. But that does seem how he's being projected. That seems like what the, any available information is indicating right now. We see him starting or whatever, you'll see a change. Where were we? Just mix and match shares of anybody like Sam Hauser, Josh Hart, Jarris Walker, Noah Clowney. Handful of shares, nobody over 5. Same thing on DraftKings, few more shares on Sam Hauser, Josh Hart, 7-8%, but below the field on both. Neither guy standing out for value, just in are who they are spot for both guys, is who he is spot for each guy. This is an outlier. Caruso coming up a little bit on the FanDuel slate. He's 3,800, that's why. 45 on DraftKings, you're not getting him at all at that price. 2% below the field, 4.26 value score. There's really nothing to see there. Playing at 0.79 this year, that's dramatically down from 0.99 last year, but small sample still. Very good player overall. Excellent defender, gets his hands on the ball. Coming up quite a bit at that 38 multi-position spot on FanDuel. That's a good value. Not even cresting 20 points in terms of the median projection, but a 5.22 value score. That's just a building block piece. And it's one that if he takes a leap for a day from the 0.84 we've gotten this year up toward that 1.05, it won't be on usage, but a few steals. You can definitely squeeze some pretty quick value out of that. We've also seen him play surprise minutes beyond the 22 I've got him projected for here and there. He's averaged 21 and change. I think 22 is fair, but a 26 or more minute night would not stun from Alex Caruso. So I'm fine with this, and it's level with the field. Over here, didn't really come up, not really relevant because of that price. Triple J, not coming up on either site. A few shares on FanDuel for 67 at 75 on DraftKings, a noteworthy price. Not coming up at all. Wouldn't stun me if Triple J had a decent game in the Garden, but just hasn't been playing like himself this year. 1.04 versus the 1.26 that he was playing at last year. He's just a much, much better player. So, a little bit of ongoing questions there, and you also just don't get the best minutes shares for anybody from Memphis. Everybody plays like 31-ish at the max, and there's a big spread of minutes down the board. A lot of guys they can turn to. Kuminga, 5% FanDuel. Didn't get him on DraftKings at 8,000. He's 63 on FanDuel, both forward spots. He's 8,000. Small forward only on DraftKings. Monster difference site to site. Still not a great value on FanDuel, but really only usable on the FanDuel board. Draymond just kind of mid. Ben Shepherd, a couple shares. Nothing overly interesting. Exactly one copy of Draymond Green came through. That's about it on the forwards. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check out rotoscouts.com when you get a chance. If you're happen to be one of the few people here who's not familiar with the site, it's rotoscouts.com. NBA, NHL, NFL going on right now. Access it all for under $1 a day, all in, no per sport prices. If you're looking for hockey projections tonight, I switched the order of operations here. They'll be done and up on the website probably about a half hour after this show ends. We're going to get out of here in the next little bit, but we got to talk through guards first. Andrew Nembhard coming up pretty decently on both sides. 43%, gently above the field on FanDuel. 32%, gently above the field on DraftKings. I just like that game. I like the Indy side of that game. Keontae George is coming up from the same game in the spot below him at also a fairly mid-board type of a guard price. Taking both pieces of that, no issues. Let run them head-to-head there. I don't mind that at all. 5-1-1, 5-1-2 value scores essentially coming up the same. You get a little bit more raw projection out of Keontae George because he's playing 3 more minutes, and he's a better per-minute guy. 1.17 this year, 1.0 last year versus Nembhard at 0.94, 0.83. You get a nice little value bump out of Nembhard's cheap price. Definitely going to see a lot of both of those guys. Between the two, Nembhard does look like the more critical guy. Just because he's, gives you a little bit more edge to go buy shares of something really nice. Pitt and Pritchard a couple spots further down, 24%, 30%, level with the field on both. Looks like we've got maybe a point or two above the field on DK, just based on how that's shaded green versus yellow over here, where we're probably like dead level with the field. And you can see it right there. He's at a 4.96 value already, 5.10 for the 6,100 on DraftKings. It's okay. It's not special. It's a low usage player. Last year he played at 18.6, right around the league average. This year so far, 16.8, giving you 0.90 versus the 0.92 FanDuel scoring, 0.94 versus 0.97 DraftKings scoring. Perfectly fine. I've got him right at his 32-minute average. Just is who he is. There's nothing special about that spot, but that does not mean that he's not playable. I mean, he's super playable. And it doesn't mean that he can't be in the winning lineup. He very much can. It just means it's not a special play that's going to have a big indicator on it saying, big flashing sign saying, hey, play me. It's one of those ones that you arrive at after putting all those guys in and then getting your 2 stars in or whatever. And then you say, all right, I got 6,000 left, 6,100 left, guard spot open. I've used Andrew Nembhard 30 times already. Let me pop a Peyton Pritchard in there. I like him a little bit better than IQ in the next spot, especially because he's cheaper on FanDuel. Similar projection, but more value. That'll work. We got IQ hard undercuts of the field on the FanDuel slate, 10%. I'll take that. A lot more relevant to the DraftKings board. 29% over there, but still below the field. That is one of our more highly owned guys from the Raptors, though. A couple spots further down, at 72, we get RJ, 18%. This is almost exactly the same thing as what we saw with Scotty and with Ingram. So again, any two of these guys is probably okay. 3 is probably pushing it when all 4 are active. If one of them happens not to play, you can fire up 3 of them. I'd probably on this slate, though, still look to take 2. But any 2 of them are fine on any given day, and there's no real telling which one's going to succeed. They're just coming up in are who they are kind of positions. But we're getting a little undercut to the field on quickly while still having them. We're dead level with the field at 18% on RJ at 72. Either option, totally fine. We talked through Cedric Coward, but if you weren't here for it, I like that piece. I think that is an underappreciated piece that the field is not totally caught up to yet because some sites are just honestly underprojecting him and have not noticed. He's been playing really well. Provided some good fantasy scoring. Ace Bailey's coming up a little bit, 41% on FanDuel. He's 4,000 over there. Got him at 26 minutes in the starting rotation, but those are weak minutes. A little bit fragile there. Just some fragility down the board outside of the, locked in guys for Utah there. 25%. I think I'd rather be in that kind of a position, like 25% level with the field at 43. Something tells me Ace Bailey could be your Ron Holland of the day. That was an ugly one. How about 95 points out of Cade and 8.5 points out of Ron Holland, with Ron Holland being the dramatically more highly owned player. Burnt a few of my very good lineups last night. Thanks for nothing, Ronnie. I think I said it on the show yesterday, though. I mean, I hate when those broken point per minute, the lousy 0.6, and he's played better than that this year, except for last night. But when those low end point per minute guys that you just don't trust come up, you got to get there, but it's never comfy. And that is a great example of one just completely burning more than half the slate on both sides. John Morant, not at all a guy like that. 8,100. The minutes are bouncing around again for all those Memphis guys. You cap out at like 32. He's averaged 30.6 over 10 games, but can play 34 on the right night. Coming into the Garden, obviously wants to put on a show. He's that kind of guy. He's definitely going to have his stars in his eyes and everything. So you could argue for, just that special game boost for Ja, if that's your thing. Not something I put into the projections, but it definitely, NBA more than anywhere else, is a thing because these guys have the ball in their hand and can control what happens with it. 20% below the field for Ja at 8,300 on DraftKings. I think that's perfectly fine in position on both sites. If you want to be level with the field on DK and you're at 25, 28, that's also probably fine. Ja has more than enough upside to get there. Mikal Bridges is who he is. 15% DK, a little bit better of a buy on the DraftKings slate. 6,500 against the FanDuel cap. We only got him 6% of the time. He's played well. He is a part of the change in the Knicks offense. They're just getting more guys more involved, moving the ball around rather than playing just like super ISO. So everybody's a little bit more involved on the fringes. So you're getting an uptick in points per minute out of Mikal. You're getting an uptick in points per minute out of OG. And not much harm to Brunson and Cat. Brunson's just a couple spots further down right here. 13% on DraftKings. Level with the field at 89. 56%. Ooh, he's only 8,400 on FanDuel. That's why. Hello. 56% of JB. I like that. 33 minutes. He's playing 33 and change per night. 1.24 per minute so far this year. That's up from 116 last year. 129 versus 120 on DraftKings. That's a really interesting spot. You can see it's another one where, 492, we're not over our value target, but we're hovering around it. And his raw scoring, and especially raw scoring at that price, is just landing in lineups because we've got some money to spend with all the value available here. It's just one of those slates where it's like an abundance of cheap guys that was enhanced by adding a few more cheap guys to it from a few absences. And, you've got multiple guys in below 4,000 in these Igor Demon and Alex Caruso types. Cheap, tons of 4,000 guys on DraftKings. So these guys are these higher priced Jalen types with 40 plus point projections are just available today. It is kind of a day where you can pick your favorites, among the guys who math out well, obviously, but there's a lot of mobility back and forth between some of the star plays. Derek White is a guy that's coming up pretty dramatically under the field on FanDuel here. 8%. One of our more emphatic red marks on the board. Might be the most emphatic, actually. A little bit gentler on DraftKings, but still a hard undercut to the field over there at 12. It's probably half the field. Am I just light on him? 35-point projection. He's playing at 1.03 versus 1.01 last year. What am I missing? Yeah, I think they just have him a little higher than I do. I got him right on the nose at 1.04. It's a fairly light opponent, but I mean, it's not like they're running away with the game total or anything. Essentially even pace. An additional 2 points on top of their average scoring in the implied total. Nothing crazy that would create expectation of dramatically different output from Derek White. AJ Mitchell also an undercut to the field. Another guy who's playing well this year. 116 per minute. Over 11 games, 28 minutes a night. I've got him at 31. He's seen a little bit of an uptick. Played 32 in the most recent game. Put up 43.2 FanDuel points. He's just been good. You could argue that he could be projected for another 1.5, 2 points. I wouldn't call you completely crazy. I kind of split the difference. 4.81 value score on DraftKings at 6,300. Hit the wall a little bit against the field at 11%, but we got more relative to the field on DK than we did on FanDuel. But we got more just raw shares in our portfolio on the FanDuel site. Anthony Simon's a little bit more relevant on DraftKings at the same price, 4,500 relative to the DraftKings cap, 8%, but below the field, just one share on FanDuel. 22%, but an undercut to the field on Tyrese Maxey is interesting. I was actually expecting that we would have seen him further up the board with Embiid coming off. I'll give it another pass, obviously, and maybe I owe him another point or a point and change, but I don't know that that makes that dramatic a difference. It's not like we didn't get him on FanDuel. We got him 22%. DraftKings only 7, but that's a gentle undercut, so the field's not really getting there at 10-3. At 10,000, it looks like the field's getting there on FanDuel, and we're getting there, but to a lesser extent. And with the ceiling that he's been putting up so far this season, I'm not sure that that's where I want to be. But that is a big price tag. And I'm giving him full-fledged minutes, full-blown everything here, accounting for Embiid out. That's an interesting position. If you took more of it, it would be at the expense of some of that Jalen, I'm sure. And then probably, well, certainly these SGA shares. But probably some of whoever that other high-priced star that we were getting at the other position was escaping me for the moment. But it would probably be a trade-off across positions if you were to try and take more Maxey there. But might be worth doing for the raw ceiling of it. Not that, essentially 1 in 4 is a small share. You're fine with that number. If he goes off, you've probably got a decent crack at it. Jordan Clarkson didn't come up on FanDuel. We did get 6% of him on DraftKings. He's only 3,400 over there. He's kind of come around with his scoring a little bit. Played 18 minutes, put up 22 FanDuel points the other night. If he goes out and does something like that for 3,400, you can get there on value. It's not a crucial play by any stretch of the imagination. 17 minutes, could play less. He's been averaging 16, but again, played 18 the other night and has been coming on somewhat lately. And he's the guy, that they brought in to fill that primary guy off the bench role. So I could see as he finds it, him playing a little bit more, getting a little bit more responsibility and finding one game where he does bend the slate a little bit of value. But no guarantees it's tonight. He's playable on DK, but non-crucial as a value guy. That would be an interesting pivot if you are, though, going away from, let's say you've overused this Ace Bailey share a few times at 43, and we'll cut $900 off of it so that you can buy something nice at another position. That's the way to do it. And that would be a low-owned, kind of interesting pivot there. SGA, just fine on either site. If you can get more of them, get more of them. 5%, 6%. Just doesn't seem like he's jumping into the value bucket the right way. But it's SGA. Raw scoring potential is absurd. Cason Wallace, 13% level with the field, 6% level with the fields. A couple of onesie twosie shares going down the board here, but more significant shares on FanDuel of both Igor Demon and Caruso, who we talked about already. I've got Demon at just 24 minutes. Nominally a member of the starting rotation right now. 3,900 point guard, shooting guard eligible. It puts him in a 5.6 value score. He's played at 0.81 per minute so far this season. I don't know that I want all that much more of Demon here. 20%, if that's what I have and that's where the field is, fine. I'm okay with it. It's cheap. It's just another, potential Ron Holland. And then our biggest outlier among guards here from site to site looks like it's Mr. VJ Edgecombe. He was another one that I had knocked down somewhat from where he is right now when Embiid was going to be out there. But he got everything back. 34% and above the field on FanDuel. At 6,900, he didn't really come up on DraftKings. He's shooting guard only versus multi-position on FanDuel at 6,500 against their cap. So it makes sense that there would be some differentiation here. That said, I do think in the raw sense, you could take a few sneaky shares of VJ Edgecombe and just try and ride that, what was a hot hand to start and is now kind of normalized a little bit already. 22 FanDuel points in 31.7 minutes the last time out. But the usage is going to come and go with who he's out there with. So I think there'll be a little bit of opportunity for him here. And looks like he's at worst, maybe a little sneaky. Not coming up as a great value. That price is either appropriate or high, depending on who he really is. But he is a little bit potentially sneaky, and we know that the minutes that those guys are playing at the top of the Philly rotation are crazy. So it's a good spot based on that. Quentin Grimes, just looking like a Quentin Grimes, 3%, 2% across sites, inoffensive type guy to slide into a lineup here and there. Nobody else all that relevant. A couple few shares on cheap guys of Cam Spencer, KCP. Steph Curry not coming up that much. It's not a great projection on Steph. Oh, because they're playing OKC and everybody's taking a haircut. That's why. Yeah, I wouldn't really get excited about the Warriors, and it didn't really look like, unless I'm forgetting somebody, that we got a ton of OKC either. AJ Mitchell was coming up somewhat, but we were an undercut to the field on him over here. We do have some Isaiah Joe, more on DraftKings, less on FanDuel, which probably went without saying at the back half of that. So a little bit more from the OKC side of that one. I don't think we need much of Golden State at all here. Steph really not coming up. 8,800 on DraftKings, 1%. 8,200 on FanDuel. Even at a cheap FanDuel price, Steph is really not coming up. 2% below the field. Jimmy coming up, but 12% and an undercut to the field. That's at a 33-point projection. It's another team where they play light minutes at the top. If I'm deciding tiebreakers for guys who are similarly priced, give me the guy that's got, and similar per minute types, give me the guy that's got a much better shot at playing 36, 38, 40 minutes, the craziness that's going on with Philly, rather than guys that I know are going to be limited to like 30 to 32 at the top end and could play 28. So that's kind of the issue with Golden State. It's kind of the issue with Memphis. Speaking of Golden State, there's Pod. 2% FanDuel, 0 on DraftKings. Just fairly priced. 5,300 FanDuel puts them in a 4.2 value score. 63 DraftKings, even further, 3.61. It's just not a lot there right now. If somebody else sits and we get Pod in the starting lineup, then you're dealing with a different story. If we move Pod from 25 minutes to 32 minutes, that's a much better option. And he would hit the board, but I don't know that he would bend the slate. I think he would land probably in like this kind of territory. 12, 15, somewhere, right in that group. I don't think he would rock it up to like, even that trajectory. A couple shares of Ben Shepherd, a couple shares of, no shares of TJ. So 16 was what I gave TJ. 4,500 again. That is a 1.19 per minute player, 1.16 on DraftKings. When TJ McConnell's on the floor for his radically unpredictable minutes, he is a very good per minute producer. It's just I have no idea what that's actually going to look like tonight in terms of how long he's out there. And while they do need bodies, they don't necessarily need bodies at his position right now. So I think it's just ease him on in. If we got 20, it wouldn't stun me, but I also think at 20, he's probably not going to break the slate. 24 plus, now we start getting into slate bendy kind of territory. But to throw another log on that, he's 5,000 on DraftKings. It's not like he's landing here at 38. It's not like he's landing here at 41. On FanDuel, he's a little bit cheaper at 45 against their cap, but even that 4.6 value. You give him 5 additional points, he goes way, way up. That would be the difference if he played those 4 additional minutes and got to 20. So there is, potential there. But right now, based on what we know, what we can guess at, I'm not seeing it for TJ. But stay tuned. If that goes up, if you see those minutes climb above 20 or even 220, he becomes much, much more playable. I think that's about it, which is good because it's 5:03 and I got to finish off those NHL projections. Beyond the Rabbit Hole is a member of the Ron Holland Screwjob Club. Yeah, I think he got a significant share of the field yesterday. I think he was like 57, 58% owned on FanDuel and I heard 60 plus on DraftKings. So big share of the field. We all should have known better. That's actually not true. He was on the front side of lock. Terrific looking play by the time lock rolled around. So that was a guy you absolutely should have played yesterday. And you just have to take the punches. That's how the game works. But those are the plays you do want to be making, painful as they are as they're actually going on and bad as they might be per minute wise. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. You hold your nose, you play it, and you go right back to it. You get back on the horse next time, even though it bucked you, as they say. That said, guys, let me punch out of here. I will drop an NBA update if anything changed before I jump to NHL. If you're looking for NHL projections, which not many are right now, they'll be up on the site in just a little bit, and then we'll swing back around and keep you updated through lock for NBA and beyond. Good luck out there tonight, guys. Somebody go win something. Show those results when you do at RotoScouts on Twitter or in the free Discord that's linked down in the description below. Check out rotoscouts.com. Oh, and check out acemind.io as well, where all the sims run. Sim and optimization tools over at acemind.io. Great site. Give those guys a little bit of love. Check out rotoscouts.com. Under $1 a day gets you in for NBA, NHL, and NFL through the rest of the season. And that's it. I'll see you again. Coming back, hopefully again, pushing it even earlier tomorrow than it started today. Got to shoot for the 3 o'clock hour tomorrow. And only one stream, all horizontal, all promises. See you guys.